How are you? Let's hear it for our pregame hosts, Bev and Lynette. I just did a live Facebook recording a few hours ago as I was reviewing my notes. I was so enthusiastic about sharing with more people what we're going to be sharing tonight. So I said, let's just pick up the phone and get on Facebook Live. And I looked at it afterwards. I thought, oh my God, I had next to no makeup on. It looks ridiculous. And then, of course, that doesn't matter. So now I have the lipstick and the girls dressed up a little too. We always do that a little bit. But you know what really makes the difference? All of that doesn't matter. Sitting here getting ready, I got centered, took a deep breath, and connected with the team in spirit and invited my guide, Sanaya, to guide this whole evening. And that's what makes the difference in all of us when we make that shift from human focus to integrated human with the soul. And that's what I know we all feel when we attend these monthly connection webinars. It's that high energy of the soul. Oh, ha ha ha. The guides just said, the goal is that all of your lights eclipse your human side. Isn't that beautiful? Your human side, that the soul side of you, the light that is inherent within all of us, that it shines so brightly that it blinds everybody who comes in touch with you. I love it. And it's very affirming that the team in spirit is right here to put these little nuggets of wisdom in our minds. So I want to, again, thank my team for making this happen. We had some glitches with the signups, and I know that Valerie, who many of you have met in these webinars, has been working behind the scenes all day, trying to get people registered. Bev also pulling out her hair and making it happen. Bev has been a little under the weather for the past week. We were hoping she'd be able to join us this evening, and she's looking good. In fact, she said putting on a little makeup just made her feel better. Isn't that funny how that works? So we're glad she sounds a little nasally, but the energy's coming back. So hoping all of you are feeling well as well. We're going to do a healing session later on in the evening for all of us. And there is somebody especially that we'll be holding in our hearts and minds later. We'll get to that. Let's see. So we've taken 2 or 3 months off, I think. First time in 5 years that I haven't done these sequentially, the monthly connections. And that was because I needed to get 14 hours of workshop prepared for the Alaska cruise that I just held. And so much new material came through that I shared on the cruise. Some things will never change. I'll tell some of the same stories over and over. Lynette and Bev tell me that people never get tired of hearing them, so that's good. But I'll be sharing some of that with you tonight. And if you were with us on the cruise, I'm sure you won't mind hearing it again too, because we didn't record any of that. And it's always good to remind ourselves of Spirit's wisdom. But it was a wonderful experience to be immersed in this community of people like we all are here tonight, who really are on the path to remembering we're not only human, and celebrating that we're part of this one big web that connects us here and across the veil with our loved ones who have passed. So to that end, I, of course, will be sharing evidence that is new since the last time we gathered. And what's really affirming for me is that my dear friend Annie Bond, an energy healer who I've had on my podcast, did energy treatments for 4 people who were on the Alaska cruise since the cruise. And she has treated them before and is familiar with their energy fields. And independently, she noticed that each one of them is vibrating higher. She used the term embodying their souls more effectively. In other words, integrating that awareness, we are souls here in a human body, and shining their light brighter. She said she was stunned by the effect. And that to me is so affirming that when we gather together and really take in these teachings, we do grow, we do evolve. So even if you weren't with us on the cruise, just by taking part in these gatherings, Annie said she felt, and the guides said this on the cruise, there was an actual energetic transmission from the spirit world to those who participated. And I know that that's what happens in these webinars, that the energy that's coming through from spirit and in the moment of the teaching affects all of us. So you probably feel it if you come back month after month, and it's why you come back month after month. And I know that I'm usually high for several hours after these sessions. This is the first time I'm doing this from Pacific time zone. Usually I'm in the Eastern time zone, and we end at 10 p.m. Tonight we'll end at 7 p.m. and I'll actually have some time to unwind, which I'm looking forward to. Poor Bev and Lynette and Stephanie and all the rest of you in the later time zones. Some of you in Europe getting up at 1 a.m. to attend live, which is beautiful. But for those of you who are not attending live, who are watching the video, it doesn't matter. The energy is the same. The same transmission of energy comes through, as it will if you go back and listen to the video later, which is wonderful. So you can listen over and over to anything you might miss. Speaking about Europe, my trip to London is coming up now in about just a little over 1 month. I will be teaching Personal Mediumship Plus in London, England. I'm so excited. Lynette is going with me as my assistant. She's never been to London. We're going to do the whole double-decker bus tour thing and be total tourists and have a ball. But most great of all, we'll be meeting those of you who are able to join me. So there's still room if you want to look into that. People coming from all over Europe for this 2-day workshop. Just go to SuzanneGiesemann.com and scroll just down under the opening banner to featured events, and the link is there for that. If you're not across the pond, as we say it, upcoming events, I have an evening presentation and all-day workshop coming up in Denver. Ty and I are getting on the road tomorrow to head from Idaho to Colorado for 2 events in Denver, live at the Wolf Theater. You know, my book, Wolf's Message, I think it's so appropriate that I'll be at the Wolf Theater in downtown Denver, live for an Awaken Way workshop and learning how to connect across the veil and just sharing the same magical evidence as we do here. And then I'll be going halfway across the country to do the message during the Sunday service at Unity of Lawrence, Kansas, followed by a 3-hour workshop at Lawrence, Kansas. So anybody in the center of the country that wants to come say hi, there's still room for that too. All of those are featured on my homepage with information. So tonight is just like all the other monthly connection sessions. I'll start off with evidence from recent readings that just opens our hearts and minds to the reality of the spirit world. This is not just theory. This is not hopeful, wishful thinking. The fact of life is that life never ends. Birth and death are moments within one enduring life that we as souls enjoy. And you who have loved ones across the veil, when you hear these stories, I hope it just opens your heart to more and more of the knowing that I have beyond any doubt that, yes, the physical body dies, but our loved ones are still part of our lives. And that's why I shall start out with the evidence from readings, because you can't deny that this is real. And then the teaching that follows is all about how we can raise our vibration, how we can live more peacefully here and now, how we can lessen ego so that we all embody more of our soul. You know, we are fully souls right now, but how much of it gets through the filter of our human awareness? That's the issue. So we'll always have in these sessions different teachings about how to best do that, to embody our souls fully, shine our light as brightly as possible. And then again, we'll do that group healing and a little channeling. And it's just going to be a great evening. A lot of talking already. Let's get on with it. Let's start, as we always do, though, by coming together as a group with an invocation, just so that we really get centered and shift our focus to this moment now. If you have your phone and you're texting at the same time as this, I'd recommend you put it aside. If there's a TV on in the room, turn it off. Put your full focus within yourself for our time together here and see what a difference that makes. So let's allow our eyes to close and imagine a shaft of white light around you. It's there. It's your central axis that connects you to this grid of all being, the web itself. Let's breathe into that shaft of light from above and below, breathing in the feminine and masculine energies that enliven you, the spirit. And exhale nice and slowly to just release anything that doesn't serve us right now. You're the one that controls that light within, nothing else but you. So let's turn it up right now. No matter what's going on in your life, find that light within you, turn it up, fill the room that you're in and go beyond it now, realizing that you are not stuck in space and time, and connect your light with all the lights of those participating in this session right here, right now. So as a group, we come together for expansion, for learning, for remembering who we are. May we each hear exactly what we need to hear. May we be buoyed, lifted up, raised up by the energy that's present, by the support of each other, by the love of each other, love being lack of separation. May we feel that love. May we notice what there is within ourselves that are blocking us from feeling and being our brightest light. And may we be a light unto others as a result of participating here this evening. With gratitude for answering the call to be here and for what we're receiving, we affirm it is so. Okay, nice. Building the energy. Beautiful. All right, let's start with the evidence. I always have a whole bunch of notes, old school, paper notes. So, what constitutes evidence? I say in my notes here. Well, for me, it's when, of course, a medium perceives from someone they have never met, who has passed from their physical body, information that they couldn't possibly know. I'm going to be sharing with you later this evening a recent upgrade that I have experienced as a result of working with several energy healers. And I am absolutely thrilled at the flow that I've been enjoying. I mean, I've been teaching mediumship for years. I'm very, very happy with my readings, but I know we can always get better. All of us. There's no limit to how much flow we can achieve, how many gold nuggets of evidence. Those are the real wows you can get. And this reading was so specific in the details that my client's father gave from across the veil. For me, I always anchor in the presence of a spirit by merging with them so clearly that I feel their personality. And so I started off by saying, I know this is your father, and he's showing me this is the way he was. These are his characteristics, and not just generic, in different situations, what he was like. And she said, oh my God, that's him to a T. So that's the big picture. Then Dad got so specific. I said, your father's telling me, and it went just like this, boom, 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 that there are 3 other siblings. There were 4 of you children. 2 of the others are boys and 1 is a girl. She's like, yeah, there are 4 of us, 2 boys, 2 girls. And I said, and your father's saying there are 10 grandchildren, even though some of them have been born since he passed. And she shook her head and she had to count. And she said, yes, he's right. There are 10, which I love because it shows I'm not just reading her mind. She's not thinking about the 10 grandkids. I think it's kind of funny. Most grandparents can immediately tell you how many you have, but she had to count. And then I said, your dad's showing me a briefcase, my symbol for a businessman. And he's going up in a high rise. And this is Manhattan. Your dad was a businessman in New York. She said, yes, he was. So I said to him, what'd you do? I said it silently so that I wouldn't pick it up from her thoughts. I said, he shows me he reviewed accounts and dealt with a lot of money. She said, he was an insurance man and he reviewed accounts all day long. It was just beautiful. And I'm sitting there saying, wow, I love this flow. I love the specificity. So I guess Spirit knows that, you know, I try not to be a perfectionist and will never achieve perfection, but it's lovely to aim for that. Why? Because we want to represent those across the veil as perfectly as possible. This is their time to let their loved ones, to let you know we are still here. We still exist. So it was beautiful. Let's see. Then, of course, the evidence shows us this is really Dad in this case. But what's most important is now is their chance to say what they didn't get to say before. By the way, this evening, I'm going to lead you in a guided meditation to do exactly that, to say to one of your loved ones something that you feel you didn't have a chance to say. So stick with us for that. But Dad then followed with some heartfelt messages for his daughter, which were exactly what she wanted and needed to hear. And I love that, because there are many loving messages we could say to each other, but those across the veil know exactly what will touch our hearts. And that reading did it. That's the goal. The test of any good reading, as I teach everyone and say over and over, because it's so important, especially if you're going to be a client in a reading, is, do you leave that reading and say, that was my loved one. Oh my God, they're still here. Not, well, I think that was them. Now, that still happens even to the best of mediums. There are times when the connection is staticky. The radio signal is not so clear. It's not really a radio signal. That's a metaphor. But the goal is that the majority of our readings consistently have that result, that they say, oh my God, that was my loved one. And it changes lives and it heals in 1 hour. Beautiful. That type of reading happened with a client of mine whose mother came through very clearly. She was desperate to hear her mother, and she did. And she was crying, and I couldn't describe Mom if I had to. I couldn't see Mom's face, but I saw gestures like charades and very meaningful messages for her daughter. But then, even though I couldn't see or describe her mom, suddenly I said, there's a white German Shepherd here. And my client said, oh my God, it's my dog. And I said, seriously, a white German Shepherd? She said, yes. And I love that. And she only said, it's my dog. And I said, well, it's a male dog. And I can only say, what was the word I used? I can only describe him as noble. I can feel his personality, noble. And this is going to sound strange, but he's like a real gentleman, this dog. And she's crying again now. And she said, I told everybody that dog was so regal. I loved it. And so she said, yeah, gentleman is a good way to describe him. So as I tune into this dog, I said, he's walking around and around in circles, and you would understand why he's doing that. For those of you who are practicing mediums, learning or practicing to be mediums, notice the difference it makes when a medium says, and I know you will know how he's doing that, or, and I know this, versus, do you have any idea why he's doing that? It just, when you state with confidence, because you truly know, you have that feeling, that allows your client to truly trust that this is coming from their loved ones. So be aware of how you're delivering the messages and the evidence. In this case, she laughed and she said, he would go behind the drapes in the living room and go around and around and around constantly. Very, very cool. And then there was one other thing that was really cool about that. Oh, yeah, I said, he's showing me that he had a problem with his legs. And he says, it was time to go, Mom. And she's crying again now because she said his legs collapsed and she made the decision to help him pass with the doctor's help. So there you have communication with the soul of an animal who knows exactly what his owner needed to hear. I love mediumship. It's so validating. And why is it possible at all? Because yes, we're all souls, but all souls, all lights arise and derive from one source, one light. And it is intelligent and creative and aware. And we are all expressions of that, including animals and trees and plants and insects and birds. So that same intelligence flows through them and wants you to know everything is okay. Beautiful. So that same reading, this woman's mother, who she wanted to hear from so badly, gave me the name Henry. She just shouted Henry. I couldn't tell who Henry was, felt like a friend. She said, I don't know Henry. All right. We'll just let it be. Later on in the reading, she brings up Henry again. And the woman says, I don't know Henry, but I know when I get a name twice from a spirit, when they bring it up twice, it's significant. And I said, but now she's showing me a big E. The letter E is important also regarding a name. She said, I don't know, Suzanne. Well, it was after the reading, as sometimes happened, that I got a very excited email. She said, Suzanne, my mother's dearest friend, even though we live in South Africa, was Italian, and his name was Enrico, which is Henry in Italian. There's your E and there's Henry twice. And she said, in fact, I'm going back to a very sacred place that the three of us enjoyed together tomorrow to visit. So Mom clearly knew that she had plans to go visit that place that was special to Enrico. So, when I do get names and they're significant, it's just beautiful. The names don't always come through because we don't always need to hear the names, but oh, when they come through, it's meaningful. So lovely. All right. So not all of my clients want to hear from loved ones. Many want advice on their lives here and now, and that's psychic work. For those of you new to this, psychic work is reading our lives here and seeing what's in our fields, a little bit of what's coming in the future. And mediumship is tuning into loved ones who have passed. And my hands go out like this because that's a more spacious energy, a bit of a higher vibration, takes a different level of attunement than tuning into psychic ability. But when somebody asks for guidance here, I ask my clients' guides to tell me about them. I don't tune into my client's field. I let their guides give me visuals, imagery, and tell me what they need to know, because nobody knows you better than your guides. So in the case of this woman, she said, I have several issues I'm dealing with. It's very challenging for our human side not to say, how do I know? We trust completely spirit. And I tuned in and it was so affirming. It was wonderful. Boom, boom, boom. Her guides identified exactly the 3 issues in her life that she was dealing with. I share this with my team all the time. May I never lose the awe of receiving information that we can't know. Maybe it's because I spend half of my life, well, more than half my life at this point, not knowing and not realizing that all of us have the ability to tune into this one shared field that we're all a part of. And once you learn how to do it and that we can all do it because we're all souls, it opens us up to so much information and to answers and guidance that we all need. So you all have your own guides. You don't need a psychic once you learn to tune into them. So stay tuned. We're always giving tools and tips on how to do that. But what was really amusing about this reading with the woman with the 3 issues was every time something meaningful and specifically and specific and accurate would come through, she would say, that's so funny, because that's exactly what I'm dealing with. Or I'd say, and your guides are talking about the fact that you just got a new job and got a promotion. Well, that's so funny because I just did get a new job. And so I would start laughing because she just kept thinking, well, how do you know that? And I wanted to say, well, that's so funny. You're sitting with a psychic, So then after she got her 3 issues, what I love is that her mother and father from spirit came in. She had only asked for information about herself. She said, my people are okay. I don't need to hear from them, but they wanted to talk to her, which was lovely. So good advice for anybody who's practicing as a psychic or medium. Just because you got what your client wants, we serve spirit also, equally, everybody. So be open to whatever is in the greatest and highest good of all concerned in a reading. And clearly that's representing mom and dad in the case of this one client. And so also a cousin came in who had taken his own life. She didn't expect to hear from him. And he had a message for his mom, right? That would be, let's see, my client's cousin's mom would be her aunt, right? He had a message for her aunt, which was lovely to be the conduit for that message to come through. And she was willing to deliver the message. So then her mother gave me 2 names in a row. I'm going to give you different names for client confidentiality, but it was like this. Her mother said, your mother just went Janet and Carol. Now, for me to get any name accurately, I celebrate, like Henry Enrico, right? And so I'm thinking, Janet Carol, what's that? She goes, well, that's so funny because I have a best friend who's still here named Janet, and her mother is Carol, and she's across the veil. And I said, oh my gosh, let me ask your mom why she's bringing this up. And I said, it's because your mother's telling me that she didn't know Carol when she was here, but now that she's across the veil and she knows your connection with her daughter, Janet, she and Carol are connected. And that's how it works. When you know people here, your people across the veil know those people's people across the veil. You got it? It's the web. So I said, well, why is Carol coming through here? Well, Carol had a message for her daughter, Janet. And we got evidence about the relationships. It was very clear that her mom really did know Carol across the veil. And what's really cool is my client's mother said, let me get it right here. She said, Carol is playing matchmaker across the veil. No, her mom was playing matchmaker, connecting the mother and Janet. Matchmaker. And my client said, you know what she said? That's so funny because I played matchmaker for Janet. Isn't that cool? When she said the word matchmaker, it comes with this clear cognizance, this clear knowing that that word had a special meaning, and to have the client validate that. That's why I love when we allow our clients to say more than just yes or no, right? A lot of mediums teach only let your client say yes or no. Well, that's if you have something to prove that this is evidence and this is definitely them. But to have a client, and I say, I know this is meaningful that your mom says matchmaker, that she's playing matchmaker with your friend's mother and her daughter right now, connecting them across the veil. There's a meaning to that. And to have her say, yeah, because I played matchmaker for Janet and her husband. That doesn't give anything away. That celebrates what just came through. And anything you can do in a connection to raise the vibration of the field you're working in will only increase the flow in your reading. So there's a fine line between getting too much feedback and getting just enough to celebrate. And you just kind of stop your clients from telling you things about the loved ones that they can get through later in the reading. But to validate something that came through is absolutely beautiful. So let's see. Last month, maybe 6 weeks ago, Ty and I were in another state traveling around, and we had a friend who had a second home in a city we'd always wanted to visit. And she said, why don't you go stay at our home overnight? I said, great idea. We'll leave our motor coach here and we'll just drive down there and spend the night. That's a great way to get to see the area. And after we agreed to do this, she said, oh my gosh, I have another friend who's staying there. I forgot, but they're going to be off in another part of the house. As long as you don't mind sharing space, she's in deep grief and she's just getting some time away. And I said, uh-oh. She said, yes, she has a child who passed. And I said, does she know who I am? She said, yes, she knows who you are. And I said, meaning a medium, right? And I said, well, this will be interesting to see what happens. And I'm usually off duty when I'm not doing one-on-one readings. The spirit world does that to me. I don't walk around and see spirits like the Long Island medium, or I would feel obligated to do readings for everyone. So I just normally don't sense anybody unless I'm doing a reading, unless there's a special drop in. And so on the way to this house, I said to Spirit, I am absolutely open. Please open me up. I would so love to give any message to this woman from her child. And it happened. It was so cool. The woman was there and her husband came in, and Ty was beside me, and we're just standing there chatting in the kitchen, just getting to know each other, just talking. And all of a sudden I went like this, and I must have frowned a little. And I thought, do I say this? I have to say this. Here she is. I said, excuse me, your daughter is here, and she's showing me, she made two motions that were very significant. For privacy's sake, I won't say what they were, but it was like charades. And I interpreted that for her, and the mom just started crying. And I said, you can tell me about it later. And the daughter in spirit delivered a couple messages, and we just left it at that. And then we went about our way, and I came back later, and it was so beautiful for her to say, I saw you look up and then look puzzled. before you said that. And I love that she was part of that moment when you can't deny that somebody stepped in, and it was her daughter. And then she explained why those two gestures were meaningful. It was memories, beautiful, sacred memories of their time together. And she cried and we hugged. And it is just the most beautiful thing in the world to say to someone who is so deeply in grief, you see what this means. Your daughter's right here. She's okay. And she's with you. And she knows what you're going through. And that applies to any relationship you have with anyone across the veil. They're here with you and they know how you feel. And it's okay that you grieve. We need to go through that, but you don't need to hold on to that state for their sake. It's okay to one day be happy again. They sure want you to know that. All right. Let's see. Oh, a very recent reading, just in the last few days, had an image I've never seen. It started off, I knew this woman wanted to hear from a partner, and this guy came in shooting pool. And I heard crack, the crack of that cue ball breaking the whole triangle. I don't know the terminology for pool, but breaking it apart. And he says, let's get this thing started. Meaning the reading, the connection. It was so creative, so clever. This is when you know you're not just pulling data out of the air. Oh, you have a partner across the veil. Let me see. He's male and he passed this way. No, this guy comes in like this. And I thought, now my client was from another country where I know they don't likely play pool. And I thought, just trust. You can only trust, because that was so off the wall. And that's one of the number one questions people ask. How do I know it's not your imagination? You know, why in the world would somebody step in playing pool and say, let's get this started? She immediately started sobbing and say, I have a picture of us playing pool together. So he was pretty clever, and it went on like that with beautiful flow. And she kept saying throughout, oh my God, those are his exact words. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what he used to say over and over. And I said, it's because he's saying it now. This is what we have to remind everybody. It's because they're saying it real time. A reading, a connection across the veil is happening now with your loved one. And this was very new to her, his passing. And it was what I call an emergency reading. And it's really important to get through to people who think that someone is lost forever, right? Gone forever, that this is real. So at one point, he started talking about her in the future. He went way down the line, when you recover, that she would one day find love again, because she came here with such a bright light. She is here to help others recognize the light in themselves. And she got very adamant, very angry, and said, no, that's the one thing I told him not to say. And I said, well, he's not listening. This is what he wants you to hear. And she got very forceful with me. No, I don't want to hear that. And this is when we realized we're representing the spirits. Now, we want to do no harm for our client. Don't push it. So just gently deliver the message and say, just so you know, I know he knows you didn't want to hear that, but you probably need to hear it because it came through today. So I just found that beautiful and touching, but very, very emotional. Okay. Let's see. All righty. So I have I got some great news recently. I have 2 books coming out next year, already under contract, 2 books. I will be talking about them more probably next month, talk about the books. But to help get the word out about these books, we've brought in a new team member. And I met her at a class I recently taught in Reno, Nevada, and things just fell into place. And I want to introduce all of you to our new member of the team. You know, we have Bev and Lynette and Valerie and Jayesh. And now we have Stephanie. So Stephanie, why don't you unmute yourself and say something so that you come on screen?
Yes. Hi there. Hi there, everyone. Thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining the team. Stephanie has a lot of qualifications that will help us promote the books in an ethical way. She gets all of this that we're sharing here and that we share with the Awakened Way. She also has a corporate background, and like Bev, she does spreadsheets.
Yes, I do. Oh.
Yes. Stephanie, the thing that you had that really got me, the name Rudy across the veil, just like us.
Yes.
Pretty amazing.
Yes. I have a dachshund in spirit, a red long-haired dachshund in spirit called Rudy, and we call him the Navy SEAL because he swam across a very overflowing creek that was almost looked like a river at that point. There was a flash flood, and so he's our Navy SEAL.
And we have this Navy background, Ty and I, and so that was not the Spirit says it was the deciding factor. I mean, everything else fell into place, but that was a God wink for us, our beloved red long-haired dachshund Rudy across the veil, and to have somebody with the excellent qualifications with a red long-haired dachshund, that's the web coming together. But the other thing that I will tell you is that Stephanie and her husband have 2 children across the veil. So they are shining light parents. Stephanie has a daughter, Katie, who passed in 2016, and a stepson, Nick, who passed a few years ago. I'm not sure what year that was, Stephanie. What year was that?
2019, 4 years ago.
4 years ago. And they run a nonprofit organization to help people who are grieving. And we'll get you in the newsletter to share more about that in the future. But I wanted to make sure that Steph had a reading from me, because I sometimes forget that that's the greatest gift I can give anybody. I forget. So I said, I want to get to know your children as well as I know you. So we just did that reading just this last week, right?
Yes, a couple days ago, Sunday.
Yeah, and I didn't know if her stepson Nick would come through. Did Mike, your husband, have a chance to listen to the reading yet or watch it?
Not yet, but I told him all about it.
Okay, well, I look forward to him watching it, because her stepson came through beautifully as well. Lots of the personalities capturing that and a lot of evidence. But I asked Stephanie to share this one thing that was really cool, where her daughter, Katie, as we continue to share the evidence this evening, showed me a flickering candle, but then she said on and off, talking about a light that went on and off, on and off. And Stephanie, you laughed. And then she'll tell you why. But then as Stephanie was explaining what this light was, I said, but your daughter's saying something about the sleeping schedule, or the schedule of this light has to change, or needs to change, or change. So why don't you explain what that was about, Stephanie?
Okay, so yes, the K light, it's in the shape of a K. It has bulbs on it, and it comes on every night for about 6 hours, from either 5 to 11 or 6 to 12.
By itself, though, right?
By itself. It has no timing mechanism. We've never changed the batteries, and we've had it for 6.5 years. So it comes on and it shines bright. So when we're laying in bed at night, and I'm an easy sleeper, Mike is not. So he was talking out loud the other night, and he said, Katie, he said, if you could change your time zone or something, just so I can get some sleep and the room isn't as bright. And he put his pillow over his head, and we just, I said, it's okay, honey. She has to go on whenever she can come on. And so Suzanne started talking about changing the schedule, and I just burst out laughing, because 2 days after he put the pillow over his head and said, Kate, can you please change time zones or something, the light started coming on from 3 to 9, not 5 to 11. So it would be plenty dark by the time we go to bed at 11. So, I mean, Kate and Suzanne just nailed it. I was blown away.
You can't make that stuff up. I love that she brought it through, but I love that she does that. So everybody notice these things, but a light that's battery powered, working for years, that has no timing mechanism and comes on and goes off like clockwork is just fantastic. So yay, we all celebrate, and we celebrate having you on the team. And she's going to be paying attention to our Q&A sessions, how we do that in the monthly connection, so that she can help with that as well. So let's do that. Let's take a break now that I've finished with the evidence part of this evening. And Stephanie, pay attention. You'll see how Bev pulls questions that all of you have submitted through the Q&A, and we can only ever get to a few of them in these. And Lynette, why don't you do a few as well, like go back and forth, one and one each. We'll do maybe 3 or 4 questions right now, and we'll do this throughout the evening. Okay. And I'll tune into Sanaya and get the answers for you.
Okay. Here's one from Kay. I'll start with. She says, the earth is our spiritual mother, but what does Sanaya say about our individual human responsibility for big things like climate change or a species becoming extinct? What as individuals are we supposed to do?
Well, what the guides are showing me right now is a body, and how the body, this is a terrible image, but if you look at your skin through a microscope, you see that there are actually like little things living on us, right? And so we are like those things living on Mother Earth. I wouldn't want to say bugs and freak everybody out, but if you've ever looked at a microscope, we have creatures that cohabitate with us as part of our bodies. And they're saying that we are the inhabitants of Mother Earth, the body of Mother Earth. And so that, our livelihood depends on the health of the planet. And that, of course, each one of us is responsible for that. And we all do things that are not in alignment with the planet, but the more we can take personal responsibility for that, and I'm thinking of ways I can do that as well, the better off the planet will be. But that I'm hearing right now, each one of us really does make a difference. Lynette.
Yeah, it's a good answer. I want to know the answer to this one.
Really? You don't know it?
Well, I know what I think, but I want to know what Sanaya says.
Okay.
I know, whatever. What is the afterlife like for insects and other supposedly lower life forms?
Wow.
And there's a corollary or a second one to that.
I don't do 2 questions at once, and my brain can't handle it when I'm in this state. So I definitely have to ask, what is life in the afterlife like for insects? Oh, got the lip twitch. They said you will not find them there. Interesting. Okay, they say there's no need for them unless they are part of a story you are creating. They are part of the Earth story. They add much and are necessary for growth here within the plant world and the animal and insect world. They do have souls because the soul is the light of awareness, but they're not part of the astral realm per se.
Well, that's just fascinating. Wow.
So it is fascinating. My left brain is trying to figure that out and think it through, but with those lip twitches, I'm just going to trust what we heard there and dive into that. So what I as a human discern from that is we could just dive all over that, but let's not. Let's all just feel into that and see how that feels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And what was the second part of that?
Well, the second part is there a difference between like your average caterpillar and say the animals that we know have a higher level of consciousness, like dolphins or elephants or apes, that kind of thing, in how they are?
In awareness, for sure. Self-awareness and again, the spirits have talked in the past about, let me get it straight. Those animals who have personalities are known to us and we meet them again. But otherwise, there would be a group soul for animals it's just consciousness that's playing out and developing and evolving. But we wouldn't individually recognize that soul of a gecko, for example. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bev.
Okay, one from Susan. She says, as far as our birth dates and transition dates, people say they are set, but how much are we free to control those dates?
At the human level, our free will does influence our experiences, certainly. And that's why sometimes we have an exit point and somebody else's free will choice may affect that exit date. It's why we have, which is our death date, right? It's why we often have several. So if you, as a soul, decided you're not going to live what we consider a full life and perhaps pass at a younger age, and you have a set date and somebody else's free will choice interferes with that, but you as a soul know that your passing will help the evolution of many more souls because of how they grow as a result of your passing, that soul will conspire so that you make choices and so that things come together so that you pass at that time that the soul made a contract to pass. I hope that makes sense to everybody. The whole concept of soul contracts, we can't prove while we're here, but there have been enough evidential readings when this kind of material comes through that we can give some credence to it. We'll know when we pass, right? Let me move on, since it's already 45 minutes into this and we have a lot of good material to cover. We'll take more questions and do more answers as we go on throughout the evening. Okay. Are you frustrated because you're trying to connect with your own loved one and you've been doing so for a while and you feel like you're not getting anywhere? You're meditating, you're doing all the things I teach in my classes, and you just don't sense your loved one. I promised you in the email that went out about tonight that I was going to share with you a very encouraging story from one of my students. So I'm going to read her email directly to you because I don't want to miss what she shared. I got to get ready to share some slides because I have some slides to back this up. Okay, so this is a woman whose daughter, and she allowed me to share her picture and her name. Her daughter's name is Belle. She's across the veil. In fact, I'll bring it up right now. Let's go down here. There we go. Okay, this whole section here is about we make certain assumptions about how we're going to feel our loved ones across the veil. We have expectations that our meditation is going to instantly result in feeling our loved ones. And when it doesn't, we get frustrated. We feel there's something wrong with us, that we're doing it wrong, that our loved ones don't want to talk to us. And in almost all cases, that is not true at all. It's a matter of clearing our energy field, preparing ourselves to be the clearest possible instrument, being patient, being committed. So my student's name is Tricia, and this is her daughter, Belle, who is across the veil. Tricia took one of my classes with the Shift Network in hopes of learning how to connect with Belle. She wrote to me, or she put on Facebook actually, this post is for people who continue to feel like mediumship is not for them. It's been a little over a year and a half since I started. I never had a great imagination. I have never been able to see images until today. Now notice this is a year and a half. She's been working at this. I asked my daughter in spirit to show me something her older brother is doing. Now that is a perfect way of getting evidence. And I do this with my own loved ones too. And I recommend you do it with yours. Tell me something somebody else we both know is doing so I can validate that it's really you. So she asked her daughter, tell me something, show me something your older brother is doing. Tricia wrote, I saw a large white building with white rounded pillars in front of it. Interesting, I thought. I'll have to ask him about it the next time he calls. Now get this. About 15 minutes later, after her daughter in spirit, in response to mom's request, show me something your brother's doing, had showed her a white building with a large white building with white rounded pillars. 15 minutes later, unbidden, the woman's son, Tricia's son, texted her a picture of himself and his partner standing where? Right here in front of the White House. Is this great or what? No wonder she was celebrating. She says, apparently they decided to visit there this morning. Her message for all of you: if you feel like you are not progressing, trust me and spirit, you are. It took her a year and a half with no sensation. He wrote, I never felt I could connect. I'm going to come out of the share here. I never felt I could connect. I could not see evidence. I got my first gold nugget today. And that's that picture from her son. And the image, she never even saw imagery. And suddenly to see that. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Suzanne Giesemann. Thank you, my beautiful baby Belle. Keep going, everyone. This is the right path. And I love that somebody else in the class on the Facebook post responded this way. Congratulations. That's amazing. Your courage and persistence bringing you such a beautiful breakthrough. And that's exactly what it is. Thank you so much for sharing it with us and for the detailed description of your process. It made me think of one of my favorite stories that Suzanne Giesemann told in class. And I'm reading the whole thing for all of you now because this is exactly, he reported exactly what I had shared. How Suzanne meditated every day for years, always asking Susan to connect with her and always getting nothing. I hope I get this right, he wrote, and he did. After she finally had her strong and permanent connection with Susan, my stepdaughter across the veil, she asked her, why did it take so long? And Susan told her she had purposely withheld contact so Suzanne would develop skills like focus, commitment to meditation, clearing the mind, familiarity with the feeling of spirit, and merging with energy. Then, once contact was made, she'd already done so much work on the challenging parts of development that her mediumship just took off. I wish you all the best. And I hope that really sank in for some of you who are feeling frustrated. Rewind this film after we send you the video and listen to that over and over again when you get frustrated. It doesn't have to take years. Every one of us is unique, but we learn to trust spirit. If it's not happening yet, there's a reason. Trust spirit and just watch what is happening to you, like the message here, learning to focus, finding more peace, developing skills that you don't already have. He wrote, I too am not there yet. Would you be willing to share what types of things you do to stay in practice? He was asking Tricia, and to not get too discouraged. And Tricia shared, yes, of course. I meditate usually every other day using one of Suzanne's hemisync recordings. That's really important. I'm requiring all of my students now in the future to use the hemispheric synchronization, hemisync recordings, because they have the binaural beats on them. And I realized I used them every day from the beginning. And I hadn't been teaching that all along because I didn't want to say you have to do this, and you don't have to do anything. But if you can have some training wheels in the form of hemisync tones, and it makes a difference, why wouldn't we use them? Okay. She said, I also try to listen to one of Suzanne's class recordings 2 to 3 times a week while watering or house cleaning. I guess she means watering the plants. It may seem redundant to keep doing the same things over and over, but I really do learn something new each time I listen or reinforce the things I am doing. And this is really key. Tricia wrote, at first I just felt things like a heaviness or buzzing within when I merged with spirit. So what are you all noticing when you're trying your practice? You know, that's getting back to that picture I showed of assumptions and expectations. If you're only expecting your loved one to speak to you in clear voice or show you very clear pictures of them, that may be not the way they're going to show up. So that buzzing could just be a new way energy is starting to move through you, leading to a breakthrough. The heaviness is different than your normal waking state. So that's something. It almost seemed counterproductive, she wrote, to keep trying because I'd get upset every time I realized again that my bell was physically gone. This, of course, broke any connection and just left me sad. That's true. It's very important. Quieting my mind was also super tough for me. I like the analogy of making my ego or thoughts or left brain go sit in the corner, like Suzanne says. I think it's also important to relax. It's very important to relax. I try too hard, she wrote, and trying, my friends, is counterproductive. It felt like my need to reach my daughter was keeping her away. It doesn't keep them away. They don't have to step back, but it is counterproductive. She said, my desperately reaching out instead of being open and allowing spirit to come naturally was a barrier. Don't give up, everybody. Absolutely. A really lot of wise counsel in there. And I hope that some of you, even though I know you've heard it before, and I say these things all the time, to hear it from somebody else who's going through what many of you are, hopefully you'll say, okay, I needed to hear that today. I got it. So good. All righty. Let me take a sip from my new mug. This is truth. All righty. So I mentioned to you that I had had a healing and several experiences and that my readings have gone to a new level. And I am so grateful for that. And I hope that it gives all of you hope that your connections will always grow and grow onward and upward, like all of us, right? So I wanted to share the whole no other explanation story with you. I did share this on the Alaska cruise, so some of you who were on the cruise will have heard this before. I don't have notes to go with this, just slides. So I'm going to bring up the slideshow. We'll go back here, we'll go down here, and we'll go here. Bear with me. We got that one already. All right. All of these no other explanation stories happen because we arise from one shared field, one mind, one source. And when we realize that, that's when we really open up and understand how miracles are possible. So just using a little calendar here to keep the timeline straight. I was asked to teach a workshop at the Omega Institute in New York. Some of you have attended some of my workshops there, and I'll have another one next summer, so that'll be great. Learning how to make the connection is what that's always about. So I headed to New York on a Thursday. The workshop wasn't supposed to start till Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but it takes a while to get to Rhinebeck, New York. So on Thursday, I'm making the drive in my rental car, listening to music on the radio. I had a long flight, then I rented a car and had an hour and a half drive. Just as I pulled into Omega Institute, a song came on the radio that made me laugh. I stopped and I pulled out my iPhone to capture a picture of it. I'm going to teach the Messages of Hope workshop at the Omega Institute. You can see I'm taking this picture here that you see through the windshield of the car. You can see the sign for the Omega Institute over there to the left. And now I'll zoom out and show you on the dash of the car what sign was playing when I arrived. Maybe you can see it if you zoom in. The name of the song was Arrival, which just made me laugh. It's one of those God winks when you notice how spirit works in your life, that you're not alone, that you're being guided, that spirit's got your back. And it was just like spirit saying with that perfect timing, okay, on to the weekend. So Friday, the workshop started. And we had a wonderful group, over 100 people, but of 100 people, look how many of them were shining like parents. This is the group of people who have children across the veil who came together. I love this woman's therapy dog on the left. It's her support dog, literally her support Great Dane. She had a back issue and needed to literally lean on the dog for support. And she was a sweetheart. So gave the workshop. But by Sunday, I noticed that a little bit of an injury that I'd suffered the week before on a bike ride was really bothering me. I was riding a new bike without any shocks and hit a hole so badly that my head just went bam, straight down, compressing and giving me twinges in my spinal cord and the neck all week. And I started to get a little bit worried about it. And Lynette said to me on a phone call, have you ever seen a chiropractor? And I said, yes, I've been to chiropractors, but I'm worried it might do more harm than good if somebody's messing around with my neck. And I said, but as I say that, Lynette, I get the feeling that there is a chiropractor in this group of 125 people attending my workshop. And I'm not too proud to ask. So I showed up Sunday morning, stood up on the stage, and before we got going, I said, on a personal note, is there a chiropractor in the house? And there was this little rustle in the audience, and there's this one man looked left, looked right, and raised his hand. I thought it was funny that he had to look around first, but his name is George Roth. And I said, when we go on break, would you come see me, please? And then I proceeded to teach for a couple hours, and I forgot that I had even asked. So we go on break, and Dr. George Roth comes up on stage and he says, I'm a chiropractor. Do you mind if I touch your neck? And I said, no. And he put his hands on the back of my neck and he said, oh, yeah, I can see what's going on and I can fix that. Well, that's just what you want to hear, right? I can fix that. That sounds good. So here's where the perfection unfolds. He just happened to have driven there. He didn't need to catch a flight. It's the last day of the workshop. I said, would you mind sticking around and just giving me a little treatment afterwards? He said, not at all. He said, I had a feeling you might be asking for me, and I brought all my tools, which just cracked me up. And I said, well, let's see. I know I have to check out of my room, and it might be a little weird to go back to my room anyway. Let's ask if there's a place where we can meet. So we asked, and I was given a key which showed me that Spirit was behind this whole thing. Let me just show you. As he was talking to me, I felt Spirit saying, this session will open your spiritual sight. So I was really excited. The more tuned in you get to Spirit, you realize how they conspire to help us. And I thought I was just going to get my neck worked on, but I could tell that George was going to be able to help me with more than that. Here's part of the magic. He not only is a chiropractor, he's an ND, a naturopathic doctor, and an OD. I believe that's osteopathic doctor. So all kinds of medical credentials, but he is the founder of a program or deviser, I don't know what word you use, called Matrix Repatterning. Now, we're always talking about the matrix, right? The web that we're part of. So how perfect is this, that Spirit sends me someone who does exactly the kind of thing that we all need, fixing our energetic field. So they give us this key to a place where he can do a treatment for me. And he came there with his partner. She didn't mind waiting while he helped me. And it showed that when you trust Spirit, you end up exactly where we need to be. We opened the door to this little cabin that, I don't know if you can see my cursor. It was right down here by the lake. So right on the water, we opened the door and it's a treatment room. That's all it is. There's a little table with a Buddha statue and a healer's table. And that's Dr. George Roth right there. I just kept thinking, this is surreal. This is exactly what I need. I didn't have a flight to catch till the next day. And he proceeded to evaluate me. And what cracked me up is he said, you've had an injury to your skull at some point. And I said, yes, at age 7 weeks, I fractured my skull. And as an aside, it's very interesting that many psychics have had a head injury. So those of you who are psychic or working as a psychic, it'd be interesting to do a poll someday. But I've read that in several places. So maybe I was supposed to fall on my head and fracture my skull. But he said, put your hands up here. Look, this side of your head is flat and this side is not. And my gosh, I had never noticed that. I could actually feel the imbalance. And the part of this practice that he does, the Matrix Repatterning, and he has trained practitioners all over the world and all over the United States. Ty has a session with one of his trained practitioners next week. So I'm really excited about that, to try to fix Ty's ongoing back issues. But he proceeded to spend 2 hours with me and noticing where things were out of alignment physically. And I hope you all understand that all of our bodies, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, are intricately interconnected. So if any aspect of us is out of alignment, it affects everything. In the middle of the session, we have a thunderstorm. You think that was meaningful? You know, my stepdaughter killed by lightning, Wolf in the book Wolf's Message, struck by lightning, and to have a lightning storm going on while this guy is doing matrix repatterning. Sorry, not just this guy, Dr. Roth is doing this matrix repatterning was very exciting to me. Not only did my neck feel better, but I was very excited to see how this spiritual sight would unfold. So more on that later. I said to Dr. Roth, I will repay this gift you're giving me by doing a reading for you and your partner. Both of them have a child across the veil. He has a son across the veil. His partner has a daughter across the veil. So you can see this was a spirit setup, right? That the way we're brought together with just the right people. So Monday, I traveled back to Thai. I don't even remember where we were. Oh, I know, Las Vegas. The motor coach was in Las Vegas. I traveled from New York to Las Vegas. And the next day in meditation, I started seeing all kinds of faces, which was really fascinating because, as I've said so many times in these monthly connections, even tonight, I often don't see the spirits' faces. And I was starting to see face after face in meditation, as if spirit was saying, your spiritual sight is opening up. Tuesday in meditation, I said to spirit, well, let's practice. Let's see some faces. Some of you who've been doing these monthly connections for a while with me will remember the time I brought through this gentleman from Spirit, William, whose part knew that he was helping me to see him from across the veil. It was just a real gift to see and to have the validation that that matrix repatterning had made a difference. And then I got a beautiful message for the Daily Way message. I hope most of you have the Daily Way app by now. And it was all about philosophizing, which of course is what William James did as a philosopher. I always choose the photo to go with the Daily Way messages based on what Spirit guides me to. And Spirit said, choose the thinking man. Many of you will recognize this statue that's similar to one by the artist, the sculptor Rodin. So that Daily Way message gotten on the same day that William James showed up in meditation and showed me very clearly his face. This is the Daily Way message with the thinking man at the top of it. Probably an hour later, I got a text from a friend of Bev and Lynette's and mine named Susan. I don't know if Susan's attending tonight. I probably should have asked her to attend. She said, wow, here's a video that I just got during meditation this morning. I gave it a name, Ripples and Strands. And not 10 minutes later, Sanaya's morning message came through and said, in the beginning is the word is vibration, a ripple in the limitless sea of being. Susan gets the most amazing connections. She's really tuned in. She had just taken a video, talked about ripples, and Sanaya's message came through talking about ripples. Susan is so on board with the Awakened Way app that she put it on a billboard she owns. This is a picture of Susan's billboard and how she's advertising to all these people on a highway in Oregon. You got to get this app, be inspired every day. So you can see that she's pretty much a member of the Sanaya team in physical form. So that happened on Tuesday. Tuesday night, we got to meet Susan for the first time in person in Las Vegas. She brought me a gift, and it was a book by Rumi, who I love. And you know that I quote Rumi a lot if you follow my work. More on that later. Just remember, Susan gave me this book by Rumi on the day that William James came up, and I put a post on Sanaya about philosophy. All right. So Susan and Ty and I got to meet each other in the bus. We had a glass of wine. She gave us the gifts, and we got to talking about good wines from Oregon, where she lives. she mentioned a specific type of wine that we had never heard of. And we said, why don't we go to this restaurant that we feel called to visit? It's called Todd's. So we're sitting there at this restaurant called Todd's. And I said, Spirit is telling me you have a special connection with someone named Todd. I won't go into that, but it was absolutely true. And then Ty started laughing, and I couldn't believe it. The very wine that we had been discussing in the motor coach from Oregon, A to Z Pinot Noir, was listed in Todd's restaurant from Oregon. Those of you who are into wine will probably not recognize this wine name. I never did. But the fact that it showed up minutes after talking about it with Susan was absolutely stunning. So we had a great evening together. It's still Tuesday. That's Susan. That's me pointing at the bottle of wine, which of course we got the bottle. We had to, half bottle. So I go back that evening, a little bit too wound up to go to bed. It's still Tuesday, the same day. I start leafing through the Rumi book that she gave me and look at the picture I came across. So I hope I didn't lose you with that long story, but it's in the Rumi book that Susan gave me. It's the same picture that Sanaya said to choose. And it's just evidence of this big web, this matrix that we're all part of. And she had been talking about ripples, and ripples are in the message. There's no other explanation than that we're part of one big web. So Spirit had said this matrix repatterning was going to open my spiritual sight. I sat down in meditation the next day and I said, let's give it a try. I really want to work on this. I've been connected with William James as part of Sanaya. Another member of Sanaya, my guides, the collective consciousness, is Emanuel Swedenborg. Bev, when you put this video together, would you put a link, not a link, put down the date of the monthly connection when I shared the teaching from Emanuel Swedenborg? Why don't we just make that one available free to everyone who signed in tonight? Let's send them that whole monthly connection webinar when William James and Emanuel Swedenborg had such profound teachings several years ago. So that's my gift to all of you. Please enjoy that one again, because it was truly astounding. So I said, Emanuel Swedenborg, and this is what all of us can do. We can all learn to connect with spirit, any famous spirit, if it serves the greater good. I said, Emanuel Swedenborg, I'd like you to show me what you look like. And I didn't have paper and pen, but I had my iPad. So I saw him right away, and I typed what I was seeing into an email to myself. And here's what I wrote on Thursday morning. I'm seeing you looking a bit like Ben Franklin. Is that a wig you're wearing? Of course, he says, as he rubs his bald head. He is sitting a bit pompously with a large belly. His nose is quite large and a bit hooked. He's not completely bald, but what's under the wig appears stubbly. He's smiling now, for he has a sense of humor, but you won't find him smiling in photos. And I heard, look now. And Spirit, I asked Spirit, what photo of Emanuel Swedenborg will I find? And he answered, this is a two-way conversation now. I'm not just seeing an image. He told me, I will be wearing one of those silly bow ties that is actually a large bow, like a young girl's ribbon. And I wrote, looking now. So I did a Google search for Emanuel Swedenborg images, and it was so clear which one he was talking about. Look at this. If that's not validation that my spiritual sight was increased, I don't know what is, because I could not have told you going into that what Emanuel Swedenborg looked like, because I hadn't seen him in my meditations. But if you rewind and go back to what he described, this is him right down to the girl's bow at his neck. So very cool, looking a little bit pompous there, but anything but. So then I got another message. There was a woman there, and I wrote, some woman of Aquitaine. She was trying to give me her names, and I wrote, Helen, Mary, and I shared this with Ty, and he says, what is her name? Eleanor. He says, it's Eleanor of Aquitaine. I said, well, all I got was the Aquitaine, and she showed up as I typed, long, straight brown hair, back over the shoulders, parted in the middle, round face, kind of heart-shaped, demure, lips thin, only slightly upturned, brown eyebrows, small, narrow nose. Now notice this is somebody, me, who has not seen faces well. This is very descriptive. I went on Google to look up Eleanor of Aquitaine after Ty gave me her actual name. And there was almost nothing but drawings because when she lived, they didn't have photographs. And people have done paintings of her, but I found an actual, what do you call it, depiction of what she must have looked on based on they found her skeleton. Now look at this description: long straight brown hair, parted in the middle, brown face, heart-shaped, demure, thin lips, brown eyebrows, small, narrow nose. Look at the picture. Oh, this is the bunch of them that were there, just paintings, but here's the reenactment. Heart-shaped face, face reconstruction based on her effigy from the 1100s. I share all of this with all of you to show there's hope for all of us to improve in whatever way we're lacking in our connection with spirit. For me, it was visuals of faces, and they're still not opening up completely in readings, but I've done very few readings since this happened. The bottom line for all of us is we really need to trust that we are exactly where we need to be. And when we ask spirit for help and listen to the guidance, we're led in the most magical ways for our own repatterning. So you don't all need to reach out to a healer right now. Just begin by reaching out to your guides and saying, what is it I need right now? Now, I noticed that in the 4 days after that session with Dr. Roth, I was so out of sorts. I was so off balance. I was irritable. I was not happy to be with myself. And he kept checking in with me. How you doing? I said, I am not happy. I don't like the way I feel. And then about the 4th day, all of a sudden in meditation, Sanaya, who I always feel up here. How many of you have attended these monthly connections? And I get snagged by them and I look up like this. Sanaya moved over to the center and settled down right on top of me. I found a picture that kind of signifies what happened. This is one of my favorite pictures where we captured an orb settled over my head, if you can see that orb there. And I heard, you are now aligned. Well, how exciting is that? And I asked Spirit, what do you mean by that? I'm aligned. And they said, you have always seen us off to the side, but we have always been one with you. You truly were out of balance. The alignment shifted things with you, the repatterning, because you were ready. And that's really significant, right? I've been working on myself for over a dozen years. Anytime I get snarky with someone, I notice that that's not in alignment with the soul. What is triggered in me? What do I need to work on? I've gone to energy healers repeatedly, not obsessively, but when I notice there's something stuck that I can't clear out myself. Take a look at the podcast I did just yesterday with Mary Seiss. We talked about this exact thing. Bev will put a link in the video to that podcast. But this is an ongoing journey we're all part of. So I can't tell you that one session with a specific healer is going to launch you to where I am now. We are all works in progress. And Spirit just connected me. Notice they didn't do this. They're right here. Spirit just said, no, we are all works in process. And it's a process of unfolding. And it does take commitment and trusting you're in the right place at the right time. So for me, the result has been just this union with Sanaya right here. I'm aware of them, but it's like this and not looking for them over here. They are here and they're guiding me beautifully, more present than ever before, which is such a gift. On the cruise, it was so apparent and people received that transmission from them. The readings are flowing, so it's just beautiful, and I wish that for all of you. So the tools are abundant here, and we'll do a meditation. We'll do the healing session. My goodness, I was worried about filling up the time tonight. Now I'm worried about not finishing in time. But it's this alignment is so important to understand that we are all one at our innermost level. The stories are out here. Our loved ones, we see them as separate. Our guides, we see them as separate. But when we realize that we always meet in the center, that's alignment. So I'm going to teach you a tool for nearly instant alignment in just a minute. But I do want to close the story with Dr. Roth on a beautiful note. And that is the exchange of energy, right? The balance. The man spent 2 hours with me before getting on the road. He gave me several gifts of his tools, literally gifts. Here, I brought this package for you. Take it with you. Things to help tie with his back, that sort of thing. And so I thought, oh my goodness, we better have a good connection with his son and with his partner's daughter, separate readings for them. Well, his son, let me just share some of the evidence. He gave me permission to do so, and I don't want to miss any of it. So I'll look at my notes here. He showed me symptoms of how he passed. I got pains in my head, and in fact, he did have epilepsy, but he showed me he gave me heart palpitations. He showed me that he had a heart issue and his head just lulled to the side. So I know that he just slipped away. And yes, his son died in his sleep at age 23 with a heart issue and results from his epilepsy. So right away, this is your son, but it was his personality that came through. This was a young man that I said it was so important to him to always do the right thing. He's saying that. And his dad said that was his motto. That was his motto. Always do the right thing. And then he said, Dad, you didn't do anything wrong. And George said, that was my number one question for him. And that's how it works, everybody. Spirit knows exactly what you need to hear, and his son across the veil knew. Do you see how this was a setup? I spent a lot of time talking how I benefited, and hopefully in a way that you will benefit from that story as well, from what I learned, that we're always growing, always evolving, but also now the tables turn and George benefits as well. And his son benefits because he gets to make sure Dad got that message. It helps all around. He made me sit up straight, his son did. I said, this is really strange, but he's putting a crown on and wearing a long robe and carrying a sword. He said, oh my gosh, he was into Game of Thrones. He actually dressed like that and had a sword collection. Those are gold nuggets of evidence, let me tell you. I said, give me a current event to his son. I said it silently. I said, George, I don't know how much grocery shopping you do, but he's showing me a really big cart filled to the top, a grocery cart. And this is a current event. You just did this within the last 24 to 48 hours. He said, yesterday I went to Costco. I never shop by myself. I filled up one of those giant carts. I said, well, I guess your son was walking along with you, and all of your loved ones walk along with you. They're here. They're part of your lives, even the most mundane things like a trip to Costco. His son showed me an electric burner, like a stove burner, and metal melting on it. He said, my son was into alchemy, literally into trying to turn metal into gold. That's a gold nugget. And then I said, he's hopping on one leg and holding the other, saying, ow, ow, as if he had a really bad injury to a leg. And he said, yes, he had a very painful spiral fracture of his leg. That's a very unusual and very painful fracture. And I said, he's showing me on a hike. He would know the names of every plant, and he would know the names of every insect, including the botanical names, the species names, the Latin names of things. And he's now showing me those novels by Patrick O'Brian, because my husband owns every single one of them, and the movie Master and Commander. And he's showing me Dr. Maturin, the botanist, who knew all these names of all these plants and animals. Now, how's that for specific? And Dr. George Roth said, we read all those books together. We watched that movie over and over. It was our favorite movie. And he was just like Dr. Maturin and knew all those names. If you went on a hike with them, he'd say, Dad, this is a this and this is a that. My gosh, how could anybody deny that? Then his son across the veil wanted to talk about his brother here. And he had messages for his brother. And he said, he's showing me his brother has a dog and the dog's paw is hurt. And George said, I don't know anything about that, but I can check. So the reading was over and George got back to me and he said, his his son's dog did indeed have a paw that was injured. And his son wanted to know, how did he know that? And when he heard it was from his brother, he'd been grieving very deeply for 3 years, he asked for a reading. And I know I have this long waiting list, but when I'm still beholden to Dr. Roth, I said, okay, we'll do the reading for your partner and your son. So the reading for his partner, her daughter came through beautifully and answered several questions that she had and just didn't know since her death. That was lovely. But I feel the most healing reading of all was for George's son, who was in a very dark place since his brother passed. And his brother came through absolutely clear that he knew what his brother was going through, talked about current events, talked about things in his lives, and showed him, quite unusually for my readings, things that were going to happen to him in the future that were worth sticking around for. And George said that his son is so much lighter. I got goosebumps. So much lighter since that reading. So you see the web of connections, and I hope it just buoys you to know how connected we all are and to trust spirit, and that your process is also unfolding perfectly. Wow. So let's do a couple questions, then I'm going to teach you that alignment technique that I promised you. All right, maybe 3 questions.
Okay. Let's see. Here's one from Judy. In your daily messages, Suzanne, you always say that you are so very loved. How do you know this when there's so much negativity, so many negative energies on the planet?
That is the best message ever, isn't it? And it's not me saying it, guys, although it is, because it's coming from my soul to yours. It's coming from the guides, and they say it because just like your loved ones across the veil, as I've shown several times tonight, they know what we most need to hear. And there's no greater message that all of us need to internalize than how loved you are. Loved soul to soul. If you don't feel loved, it's because some person who has been hurt taught you otherwise, or some experiences you had caused you to believe otherwise. We're here to let our lights shine. And our light shines when we recognize we are the love we seek. And Spirit says right now, as I align with them straight up and down, if you could see how beautiful you are, you would never question the fact that you are so loved. So what you see when you look about you and you see hatred and people mistreating each other is people who are simply blinded to who we are. And they are also very loved as well. And once we come to know this, we become the messengers of that message just through our actions, our thoughts, our words. So take it on board, everybody. May I impart no greater message to you through Sanaya of how loved you are. In fact, I'm not going to answer any questions after that one. Let's just move on to the practice. You know, I love acronyms. That's a military thing, right? Bless me method, 7 steps. The no fault method, 7 steps. The sip of the divine, sit in peace. So I have a brand new acronym thanks to the guides. I absolutely love it. It's up to us to remember to do this. But what I'm encouraging you to do, thanks to Sanaya, is to take frequent breaks and have aha moments throughout the day, where AHA is an acronym, and it's all about aligning with your soul, coming to know you're so very loved, coming to know you're not alone, coming to remember you're not only human. You need to have AHA moments and come to that realization. AHA, the healing creative force of the universe is love. I've just shared with you the Awakened Way teachings, right? So what do these AHA letters stand for? You notice you're not quite in balance. You're off balance. You're not centered. The first A is align. How do you get centered? Simple. Take a deep breath and remember, I am body, mind, and spirit all at once. align them just in awareness with the breath. You're usually off balance, you're scattered. Look how the hands go out here, scattered. To be aligned is centered, and we're find our center in the heart with peace. So you take an aha moment. It really only takes a moment to sit and take a breath. I'm aligning now with my true self. It's just something you do with your thoughts. It's an intention. I'm aligning with body, mind, and spirit through the breath. Slow breath. The H is harmonize. What does that mean? It means you're out of tune with the soul. The soul is spacious awareness versus the limited awareness of your human state of awareness. So to harmonize, always the fastest way to get in tune with the soul is gratitude. Gratitude. Very quickly. Think of anything for which you're grateful and don't just think about it. Feel that gratitude. I just thought of 4 things off the bat I'm grateful for. Now roll around in that energy. And it's just like when I play the flute. If my flute is flat, I push the head joint in a little bit. If my flute is sharp, I pull it out a little bit. It's been a while. I hope I got that right. Any flute players will correct me, I'm sure. But it's an adjustment. So to harmonize quickly, you might do a very quick chakra clearing, but really just a brief moment of gratitude and reminding yourself any affirmation that you truly believe, such as, I am the light. I am so very loved. And you've harmonized. You're aligned and harmonized. And the second A in aha, in this aha moment is attune. You've tuned your vessel. Now attune to your guides. And that's as simple as saying, I acknowledge I'm not alone. Do you have any advice for me? So it's kind of like the sip of the divine. You may get an instant answer, but really attuning to your guides is, you don't have to sit and ask a question and get an answer. To me, it's just an acknowledgement. I haven't checked in with you guys lately. Thanks for being with me. I just attuned just like that. And now I'm back in balance. Now I'm back in soul awareness. I'm integrating soul with human side. I'm not running off and playing the Suzanne role to the hilt, so much so that I'm caught up in the drama. I had an aha moment. I aligned. Ah, yes, I'm a soul. I harmonized. And I'm so grateful for the gifts in my life, even though there are several things going on right now that are knocking me off balance. And I'm attuning to my guides. Please guide me. And that's it. So you can make this aha moment your own, but it's so simple, but you have to remember to pause long enough to have those moments. Okay. It's very simple. I love this tool. And hopefully the more you do it, you will have what we at the human level know as ahas, insights that pop in from your guides as you attune. How do you like that? Put some comments in the chat. You like the aha moment? Yeah, all of that, a direct result of this new state of alignment that I find myself in. That's very, very exciting. I'm so grateful to Sanaya. I wondered what it was going to be like when I went to Reno, Nevada to teach after this session with George at Omega Institute. And Sanaya's no longer like this. Everybody was used to laugh when I'd go like that, you know, because they could see Sanaya, but I thought, well, nobody's going to see anymore, and they don't need to. You can feel it when there's just this sudden little catch, and we tune in, and here's their wisdom. So I'd just like to model what's possible for all of us to constantly be guided when we remain aligned with spirit. Cool. Okay. I did promise you a tool about dealing with the ego. The cruise to Alaska was a wonderful opportunity, a huge opportunity for me to look at how ego tries to keep us separate. To stand on a stage in a big theater and have people laugh at your jokes and laugh at your stories. I suddenly understood how comedians get that high, right? And how they get wrapped up in the adrenaline rush. And every night of that cruise, after I would give a workshop, I would go back and I'd lie in bed and I couldn't sleep because my body was reliving those moments physically of the adrenaline rush that I got from the crowd. And you can easily say, well, I did that. And I was saying, Spirit, I can't sleep. And I don't like the addictive nature of this feeling. The physical body gets hooked on the good feelings of that adrenaline rush. And let me tell you, it's draining. But I also was hyper aware that that could easily go to your head. And I said, how do I stop this? How do we not get caught up in ego and lose the mission here, the sacredness of this work? And Spirit was really clear. They just said, use the word script. That we're playing roles here. All of you are playing a role. You're acting out the script of your life. And when you take your script so seriously that it makes you feel separate from others, then you're out of alignment. So a simple reminder, script, just brings you back into the heart awareness. What is this really about? I'm a soul. And then they said, just remember the word radiance. You're not here to be anyone. You're here to be radiance. There's no ego in shining our light. Just radiating the light of the soul is our task while we're here. And so if you find yourself forgetting who you are, getting caught up in the story, if it's knocking you off balance, I hope that these two words will help you. It really helped me. And I was able to sleep afterwards. You know, it's like, okay, I feel that, feels great, but I don't like it. So script, it's the script. Radiance is the goal. It's beautiful. I hope that works for you. And if not, ask your guides to give you words that do work. Because we got enough big egos running around in the world, running governments and other things that we need more grounded, centered people coming from the heart, don't we? And that's you. So thanks for being on this journey with me. Before we do our healing session, I want to share with you that I mentioned my HemiSync recordings earlier. I had a call from a family member who I haven't talked to in years. And this family member, who's a younger generation, recently started meditating with HemiSync recordings and setting aside time to meditate, and has changed so much that several family members don't recognize them. And suddenly is talking about love and consciousness and has so much more patience. It is a beautiful thing to witness. And isn't that what we want for our family members as well? But we can't change them. We're on our own journey. So maybe if we all just continue to model what we want others to see, that's the best way to go about that. So that was cool. I said I would guide you in a meditation to connect with loved ones. We're going to do that, a brief one for about 8 minutes. It's funny. The guide said 8 minutes, not 10, 8. We'll see how long it takes. And then we're going to do a healing session and see if Sanaya has anything to say to close out this whole session. I love these guys. So as we said earlier, those across the veil, when they come through a medium, they say what they know we need to hear. I would like to assure you, you don't need to do a meditation like this for your loved ones to hear what you have to say. You don't need me to guide you. You need only think your thoughts and they hear you. They know what's in your heart, but it's very powerful for us here in human form to get it off our chests. Notice the heart center there. So I'd like you to bring to mind someone who has passed and a message you have for them, something you wish you had said before they passed, or something since they passed that's come to light that you'd like to say to them. Trust me, they already know it, but I know this will be very healing as we just enter into the spacious awareness of the soul and say it heart to heart. If you feel something return, wonderful, what a blessing. If you don't, just know the message was received. So join me now. Just clear your lap of anything that's on it. You can be lying down or sitting up, but that's our intention. I'm going to let my guides lead this. Would you take a nice relaxing breath with the intention of relaxing your entire body and expanding your awareness? Breathe in very slowly through the nose and breathe out even more slowly through lightly pursed lips. Breathe in again, nice and slowly through the nose. This time, as you breathe out, feel yourself relaxing as much as possible. Release any stress you find anywhere in the body. Let's do that one more time to the count of 4. Breathe in. Now to the count of 6, exhale and just sink, sink, sink into the most relaxed state, yet your mind is still aware and alert. Notice how relaxed you feel, how peaceful and calm. And the guides are telling us that you are receiving energy that's going to help you get into just the right state for connection to be made. Continue breathing slowly. Don't worry too much if you're doing it right or wrong. Just relax. Move awareness to the heart area. Turn up that light that is there. Even if you're going through hard times, that light continues to burn and you are here for a reason. Turn it up with your will. Fill your energy field with as much light as you can muster. What are you grateful for right now? For instant coherence in our energy field. Feel that gratitude. If it's grateful for the person sitting next to you, if there's nobody sitting next to you, if it's gratitude for simply being present with this group of loving people in this energy now, feel that. And now aware that you're both human and a soul, and that your awareness of the human side often keeps us from being aware of that soul aspect. Think of your human thoughts like clouds that block the sun that's always present. Take in a breath and let's just blow those clouds outward to create space and awareness. Breathe with me outward. You are intertwined eternally. Knowing that you can meet your loved ones in this space at any time. Give gratitude for what has been received. Tell your loved ones you'll meet them here again soon. And we'll just come back to normal waking consciousness with a nice refreshing breath. Just breathe in quickly and open your eyes. All righty. Hope that was a good experience for you. Some of you might have brought tears, and that's okay. Bev, let me ask you, did you lose me for a while?
Yes, it did freeze for a while, but I think in the silence, we could all feel the energy.
Oh, and it kept going. It was probably, did it freeze pretty much right in the silent part or during the guided part?
Part of the guided part, maybe, but the energy was there. Everyone felt it.
Okay, super. Trust in the process, right? All right. Well, thank you for that. And again, remember, you can do that yourself anytime, but you don't need a meditation to talk to your loved ones. It's just as simple as, hey, how you doing? I'm thinking of you right now, just like that. Okay. We're going to do a little healing session now for each other, followed by Sanaya channeling. Hang on just a second. All right. I was just checking. That was Lynette texting me. You're off the screen. I think the internet just dropped here. That's all that happened. Probably high energy, right? We did a healing session like this the other night, a group of 20 of us, and I'll tell you why. And when I went downstairs afterwards, one of our lights downstairs started pulsing. I said, Ty, look at that. He says, there's very high energy here. So I know that energy is really going to be off the charts on this one. If we drop again, I hope to come back soon. I would like to share with you, I've gotten permission to share this. I rarely single anybody out for healing, but I know you'll all understand why I'm doing this evening. Most of you have read the book Wolf's Message, and you know the story, and you're familiar with Mike and Beth. Mike is Wolf's dad. Beth is his stepmom. Beth is a dear friend of ours. Mike and Beth both are, of course. She's a veterinarian that helped both of our babies cross the veil. We have just great love for both of them. Beth and Mike were on the cruise with us. And just since the cruise, she felt fine on the cruise. But in just the last week, she's now in the hospital, Mayo Clinic, with an acute case of leukemia. Really spiked, came on rapidly out of the blue, and it is very serious. And so I just truly believe in the power of prayer. I will tell you, from having spoken to those across the veil, I'm going to say this, and I know it will be taken in the right vein by all of you, and Beth is listening with us now. From speaking to a woman in a coma, she says, when it's your time, you'll go. If it's not, you'll stay. So we also, as Spirit told me today, do all we can to help people stay. Because until we know when it's somebody's time, of course, we're going to do all we can. But we also trust Spirit in all things and know that through our efforts, healing takes place at many levels. So I would like to ask all of you, as we send healing to each of us and to our own loved ones, because we all know somebody who's going through challenges, that you also include Beth Pascarnis in that energetic transmission. All right? So the way we do that is very simple. You just know that you are a being of light, and we have the energy come through us and from the heart go out to those who are most in need of it. And let Spirit do that. We don't do it. We're the conduits. And I ask that you not ask for healing for yourself, because the more selfless we are, here we go. We wish you to know that we have been with you throughout this session, and that healing has been taking place, not only for those who have been singled out, but for all of you. And what is healing but a we do not wish you to feel that you have done anything wrong if you do not have balance in your lives now. You are so very loved are words which, as you come to believe them, will change your life, will allow yourselves to find balance within themselves. You and your guides are intimately connected. Call on them often, yes, in these so-called aha moments that you have learned about this evening. We will continue to give you tools and techniques to use to connect with your own innate guidance, for at your innermost level, you are always and already connected with the one source, of which your guides are also a part. We know that parts of this transmission did not get through due to technological challenges, but at the soul level, the words were well received already and known in advance, for the soul always knows what message you most need to hear. And in all cases, it ends with the words with which we end all of our messages. The message is, you are so very loved. Hear us well. Nothing could be more truthful. We bid you good night. Okay. I know that part of that messed up because I heard recording in progress. So you missed part of it, and I don't know what was recorded and what isn't, but I do believe I heard at the end that the energy was received regardless. And the beautiful part is all of you during all of that were radiating exactly the healing energy that's most needed, not only by individuals and by the group, but by our world, right? All right, look at this. Have we really gone 2 hours? We have, right? I keep looking at the clock and it feels like maybe 1 hour, maybe 5 minutes. Oh, goodness. I love you all so much. I'm sorry for the technical challenges, but it is what it is, right? And the fact that nobody on my team appears put out by that, I can see my team looking at me and they're all smiling too. So I thank you all again for your patience, for joining us. The recording will come out in a couple of days, but meanwhile, look at all those beautiful chat messages coming in the box there. I love you all too. And anything we didn't cover tonight, we'll cover next month. I think we got through most of it. And I have such cool stuff to teach you next month about the brain and how the programming of the brain keeps us stuck in the role in the script. And just today was given the most cool analogy for how we can shift to different realities. Where are my notes? Look at this. Notes, lots of notes that have not even typed up yet for sharing next month. The teaching never ends when we're connected, and it's my greatest honor and blessing to share it with all of you. So thank you for joining us, and thanks to everybody on my earthly and spirit team. We love you all, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.